Hello and welcome back to the Nine Sports Podcast. My name is Kathleen and I host the weekly soccer edition of our show. We have a lot to talk about this week, starting with the SheBelieves Cup, where the U.S. women's national team won 3 matches on their way to the tournament title. We'll also look at 2 great pieces from Annie Peterson this week and take a look at the NWSL opening day schedule. But first, I want to thank my awesome team of Abigail, Gabby, and Thomas, who all represented the Nine Sports on the road this week, helping to cover the SheBelieves Cup. Julie did some great editing at home and covered that first game for us as well. I hope you enjoyed their work. Gabby has a piece coming later this week that I think you will really enjoy about Tobin, Heath, and kind of connecting the generations of the U.S. women's national team through soccer. I don't know if you saw during the broadcast, they did show that she brought a ball before she was honored and showed it to Brandy Chastain, who had signed it. Brandy signed it again. And just a really special moment for this team that I think we kind of lose track of how short it's really been around, partially because they've been so dominant, but also it's just kind of hard to believe that women's soccer has gotten to this point. And obviously, we all know the 99ers team. And certainly not the first women playing soccer or the first women being good at it, but that team cemented in history. A lot of people really look to that as kind of the starting point of popularity of soccer in this country. So being able to bring some of those women who, are now broadcasting games or owning teams into kind of that next generation that really cemented the legacy. And then now, obviously, with this relatively young team that Emma Hayes has put together, just a really special moment for the sport. And it's something, I personally really enjoyed as a big fan of Kristen Tobin and Bob. Love that Bob was recognized for her second cap, at least on Instagram, and got to celebrate both of her moms this year. So we love to see happy dogs. The U.S. didn't score much this tournament, but each goal came from a different player, which I think is a really good showing of the team's depth. We had Lindsay Heaps and Jaden Shaw in that first game against Argentina that they won 2-0. Allie Sentner scored against Canada, and then Alyssa Thompson scored against Colombia. And then on the other side of the ball, the shutout streak continues. So this goes back now to October 26th when they allowed a goal from Portugal in a 3-1 win. So now we're over 800 minutes. We've, celebrated New Year's. We've had a lot happen in that time. But I think that it says a lot about this team that not only are they winning kind of those bigger flashy games with the, more impressive scoreboard, but they are also able to close down and win these kind of more defensive battles when they maybe only do score a goal and really have to kind of lock in and take those chances, because I believe they only had 3 shots on goal this whole game. I think Aaron pointed that out in post game, but then on the other side held Colombia to just 1. So again, a really big defensive performance for them this tournament. And Emma has talked a lot about just the toughness and kind of the patience of this team as well, not letting themselves get, riled up out there, not giving into the pressure. And so let's see what she had to say about the win and the shutout streak as well.
Yeah, I think I've said it before. We've got a split season. We got half our players in season, half players out. I think the performances in She Believes reflects that. Some really good moments and then not quite. But as I said to the team, winning major things. It requires different games and different approaches in every game. And I think we've showed all those sides in all 3 games. I think we've shown how to win when we're not at our best. I think we've shown the versatility. I think we've shown the depth. I think we've shown maturity. And I'm like, as a coach, I'm happy about those things. And yeah, of course, I love shutouts. But more importantly, I love that we haven't give up a lot of chances. And haven't sometimes when you're winning a game 1-0, the game can get really tight, you give away corners, and all of a sudden a game can flip like that. And I think we've done well to minimise games becoming transitional.
After the match, Hayes was also asked specifically about Alyssa Thompson, who was your goal scorer, and how she's watched the young Chelsea star grow through her time with the national team. Thompson made her senior team debut back in 2022, but has obviously become kind of a more and more important piece of this team. Now also has her little sister on the roster as well. So it has been a lot of fun watching her and Giselle be able to bond and connect out there. And I know she gave her a lot of credit for her performance this weekend. So let's see what Emma had to say about Alyssa.
I think it's been a tremendous year for Alyssa, for both club and country. The consistency in her play, I think, is a standout for me in terms of being able to do things over 90 minutes and do it game after game, including a clutch moment like today. She's been doing that for Chelsea all year. She took a chance earlier on in the game, and I said, you're going to get one more. You're going to get another. And I feel when we play against teams that, in world football, everyone's really quite compact and well coached now. But sometimes you're going to need something from deeper areas. You can't break blocks. We'll call them low XG chances. And if you think about this tournament, Lindsay Heaps, Jaden Shaw, Alyssa Thompson, the types of goals we've scored is because teams respect that space in the box and not giving us much of it. So it was a wonderful finish from her, and one that it was coming. Like we deserved that, I think, based on the second half.
For club, Alyssa leads Chelsea with 6 goals through 14 matches and has also contributed an assist. She has been a lot of fun to watch on that side. Still a little surprised that she made that jump, but I think she is one of those young stars that can really benefit from the experience of going overseas, seeing a slightly different style of play, and then bringing that back as well to the national team. And she obviously has Naomi Girma over there as well. And a lot of these U.S. women's national team players are playing overseas. But I think it will be really interesting to see how she kind of continues to mature in that Chelsea environment. And on the national team, I mean, I'm looking forward to a long, successful future led by the Thompson sisters as well. I don't know if you saw, but Zoe she just participated in a youth national team talent ID camp. She is the third sister. And just a lot of really exciting things ahead for that family. And they are just so much fun to watch, and they play with so much joy that I hope we just keep them coming. So finishing out, She Believes Canada went 2-1. They won their final match in penalties after a scoreless regulation. Colombia won 1, and Argentina lost all 3. Next up, the U.S. will face Japan in 3 April matches. Japan's ranked 8th internationally and has been obviously a fierce rival historically. A lot of really great matches between these countries. I think it will be especially interesting to see how this team looks a month into the NWSL season. Obviously, a lot of the international players have already begun their seasons, but with these matches coming in preseason, it's reasonable to expect that a lot of these NWSL players are not in full season form yet. And so 1 month of them into camp and competition and more regular training, I think will only continue to strengthen the squad as they get ready for those matches against Japan. Those are scheduled for April 11th, 14th, and 17th. So almost a month to the day from the start of the NWSL season here. We had a lot of great content over at the Nine Soccer this week, including a profile of Emma Sears from Thomas Costello before that match in Columbus, Ohio. We had reflections from each one of the She Believes Cup games, and a story from Jane Campbell from Annie Peterson. Campbell, I can't even believe it, but is starting her 10th year in the league. Just such a consistent player, such a force for Houston, and has set many records in this league. She has played a little bit with the national team. Seems like she's maybe kind of falling out of that rotation, but a really nice conversation with her getting ready for the season ahead. And then over at the Nine Sports, Annie also wrote her Soccer Insider column about the return of Sophia Smith, which was huge news this weekend. She was removed from the SEI list right before that game and subbed into Portland's exhibition match. She came in at the very end. Understandable that, she is still working her way back after the birth of her daughter, but we will appreciate any type of preview of what she's coming back to, and just the excitement of having her back on the pitch. She is such a fan favorite and such a great player to watch, and especially this week ahead of playing Washington, the prospect of having her and Trinity Rodman on the same field again is very exciting, even if they'll be on opposite sides. And Annie included this in her story, but Wilson told reporters after the game, quote, "I feel good. I mean, I'm obviously being very patient with myself. I think coming back from pregnancy is a very different thing than coming back from an injury. And I think I'm giving myself grace because of that. But I feel really good. I've just been so eager to get my first game in. So I feel like I've checked that box. I feel good. And obviously, I'm so glad it was here in front of our fans." And I appreciate that Emma seems to be giving these women a lot of freedom to kind of set their own timeline to come back, to listen to their bodies. Obviously, we're going through this with Soph and then Mal Swanson as well, deciding when she's going to come back. She's a couple of months behind Wilson, if you remember, just on kind of timeline of having that baby and returning to some sort of competition or at least training. But really excited to see how they both manage their return to the pitch. Hopefully we start seeing them on those camp rosters sometime soon and getting back into the mix ahead of the World Cup next year. Wilson also talked about the future of the Thorns, who lost Sam Coffey and Bella Bixby in the offseason, and then finally found a new coach and announced him last week. I was not sure they'd be able to do that before the start of the season, but they snuck him right in there. So a lot of things to watch for in Portland, but it feels like her return is really going to be a key piece for them this year, both mentally and, from a strictly competitive game perspective as well. She is just so quick and so phenomenal with the ball that she can make a lot of those plays happen, even if she is around a largely new roster and new leadership as well. And before we dive deeper into the NWSL, I do want to draw some attention to the fact that the Women's Africa Cup Before we dive deeper into the NWSL, I do want to draw some attention to the fact that the Women's Africa Cup of Nations has been delayed until the summer. It was supposed to start next week, March 17th in Morocco, but will now start at the end of July. And at least for now, it's still going to take place in Morocco, but a really disappointing turn for this qualifier, which the last one in 2024 was delayed almost a year and a half, ended up being played in 2025. But we'll talk a lot more about this in the coming months and hopefully have some guests on too to talk about this tournament, the incredible level of talent coming out of those African nations, and who to watch for as we eventually get to the start of that tournament here in a couple of months. And can you believe NWSL opening weekend is here? It feels like this offseason has been forever. Games officially start Friday with Washington hosting Portland in that match where we might see Trinity Rodman and Sophia Smith back on the pitch at the same time. Then in league terms, we have a leisurely start to Saturday with Boston's inaugural match where they host defending champion Gotham FC, and then Kansas City hosting Utah, and Denver starting its inaugural campaign against Bay. Those first two games are in their entire own TV slots, which what a blessing here in 2026. And then we do get a little jumbled at the end of the day with the third game overlapping into the fourth and fourth into the fifth. Those start at 5:30, 6, and 7:45 Eastern. So we can't give them too much credit yet. But Sunday's games are at 3 and 6, with Orlando hosting Seattle and Angel City hosting Chicago. Those are all Eastern time, even though I am in Central. My editor believes that East Coast is the only real time. So I guess I will comply with that and the NWSL website so I don't have to do any conversions. Our staff will be spread out this weekend covering games across the league. So let us know where you're watching from, and we will meet back here to discuss next week. That is it for today's episode. Thank you for joining me, and enjoy the week ahead. Remember, you can go to the9sports.com, THEIXSPORTS.com, for all of your coverage from the NWSL, the U.S. Women's National Team, and all the other sports we cover too. Obviously, jumping right into March Madness on the college basketball side. Hockey is back in action in the PWHL. And then come back here later in the week for our hockey podcast and our basketball podcast. Basketball still on the hunt for CBA information. So Howard and Jackie should have an exciting update for you there later this week. At least we hope they do. Hard to tell what they're doing on that side of the ball. But also look up Women's Sports Daily. That is your 5-minute daily recap of all the headlines in women's sports. And that is on its own feed, so you will need to go to your favorite streaming platform and look up Women's Sports Daily. But in my opinion, it is well worth the listen. The crew that puts that together does a great job, and I think does a particularly nice job of bringing a lot of variation to the sports that we cover and the different things that they talk about throughout that show. So definitely look that up, and I want to thank you again for listening. We love having you here.